And join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and I want to welcome everyone to our meeting this evening. We do have a normal business agenda, very brief, and then we'll get into the budgetary discussions. Please note, Ms. Solis is absent this evening. Items from council, anything? I know mosquito spraying is a big deal, and I want to let everyone know. Did we start today? Is that what I heard?
Yes.
We started spraying for mosquitoes today. Couldn't be soon enough. They're very bad, so we'll see how that goes. How long will that go on? A couple days straight, or
3 days, Colby? Okay.
tonight and the next 3 mornings? Okay, very good, thank you. Council, do y'all have anything in particular? Okay, we'll open citizens' communication.
Well, we ought to recognize Charmel.
Oh, my goodness, but I'm not, yeah, I probably would have done that tomorrow, but let's do that.
Why don't we do it today and tomorrow?
Yes, well, the Texas City Managers Association have picked our very own Charmel Garrett as City Manager of the Year in the state of Texas. So, yeah, that's pretty amazing, and you received that award last Friday. You didn't bring it with you, did you? See, we need that, so would you bring it tomorrow? But we talked about it late last week, and, you know, as we all know, Charmel, she's very modest and really didn't care to say much about it, but I said, absolutely not. That is a very big deal, and I think I speak for everyone that we're all so very proud of you for that, and it's well-deserved, so thank you.
May I say something really quick?
You do, but tomorrow night, bring your plaque so we can
Okay.
all see it.
Okay, but first, you know, I was telling Donald Reese today, these types of awards aren't possible unless you've got a really good staff that you're working with, because that allows you to be successful. I said I was like the quarterback, and I had a really good offensive line. So it's not possible. And then council, y'all give me latitude to manage as I need to. So it's, you know, it's not just a me award. I think it's the whole city of Victoria staff award, and I appreciate everything the support I have. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, just bring us that plaque so we can see it.
Okay.
Mayor,
Yes, sir?
may I also mention maybe we should recognize our new fire chief?
Good idea, yeah. Mr. Halabaska is just full of ideas tonight. So, as you all know, Tanner Drake has chosen to retire at the end of this month. So June 30th, he'll present his budget, though, tomorrow, since he's the one that worked on it. And I made the announcement last week that Assistant Chief Tracy Fox will promote to the next fire chief effective July 1. And I know we're all excited and looking forward to Tracy's leadership. Congratulations, Tracy.
Oh, well, I'm sure we'll hear from him a lot coming months, so. Anything else, council and Tom? Thank you for
I'm
bringing
just trying to
those.
help you.
But we would have gotten to them, but thank you, that was very appropriate, appreciate that. Okay, moving on to citizens' communication, if anyone would like to speak to us now would be the time. He says no, okay, so, I'm sorry, I can't. So we'll close citizens' communication, and we have a consent agenda, 3 items, is that all?
Yes, there are 3 items on the consent agenda tonight, which will be approved by a single vote. They are first, the resolution authorizing the city manager to execute the second renewal of the debris monitoring contract with Tetra Tech Incorporated and declaring an effective date. Second, a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute the third extension with Ashbridge Incorporated for debris response and recovery and declaring an effective date. And third, a resolution awarding the Nursery Drive Rehabilitation Overlay Project to Brandon Paving Company Limited for their low bid of $492,207.14, authorizing the city manager to execute all documents necessary to complete the project, authorizing the Director of Public Works to execute change orders to the project not to exceed the amount authorized by Texas Local Government Code Section 252.048, and declaring an effective date.
I move to adopt the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, those items pass. We can move into our work session then. I'll hand it over to city manager.
Thank you. And I'd like to go back to one item, the Ashbrook contract. At the time that we put this on, they had not asked for a rate increase. They have since asked for a rate increase, so we'll be bringing that back on the 17th for their rate increase. But this is the last year of that contract, and we'll be bidding it out in the fall. So it's not surprising they're wanting a rate increase after what all went on in the state this past year. So-
Is that separate from the little one that's in there?
Yes, it is. Yeah, it'll be another rate increase. It will be just a rate increase only, so.
Okay.
But I didn't want you to be surprised. Well, we've adopted a budget now. I meant the contract, and all of a sudden you're coming back with that. They just presented that to us late last week, so anyway. So the work session, I think the nice thing is you've all been through this before. Some of you more than others, but we've all been through the work sessions before. So the purpose of tonight is, of course, big picture on what's going on with our revenues and the expenditures. Gilbert will go through the finance side, and then the departments will talk about, the big departments will talk about some of their departmental issues. I've asked, though, specifically tomorrow night, when we get to Public Works, if you've got any comments about the previous CIP projects or the water and wastewater rate increases that we talked about previously, we'll kind of need to know what direction you wish to go to tomorrow night if possible. This is the opportunity for us to present what we're thinking about what we'd like to see in 19, and it's your opportunity to tell us, no, we'd like for you to change courses. We don't like that direction, so it's great feedback time. So we've got 2 nights planned, and I mentioned to the mayor earlier, if it gets long in the evening, we can always push any presentations that don't get done tonight to tomorrow night. So we're not, I would like to at least get through the police department tonight if possible. So, but our first presenter is Cheryl, and we've chosen to do Cheryl first tonight. Is pay program for the city employees was a big issue for all of the council members and asked for us to consider that strongly. We have done that, so I'd like to lead off with what's going on with our recommendation for pay program, and then Gilbert will talk about expenditures in the general fund and revenues. So.
Well, good evening, Mayor, members of council. Glad to be here. I do have the privilege of kicking off the budget workshops with the department. So I'm up front, and I'll try to make it as quick as possible, but I do have quite a bit of good news to share, so want to spend time on that. I'm also welcome any questions as I go through the slides, so just stop me, ask questions. If I don't have the information, I'll make sure to capture that and bring it back to you tomorrow night. So tonight I'm going to be talking primarily around some personnel changes that you're going to see in the fiscal 19 budget, and then a proposal pay program that includes an across the board. It also includes funding for the STEP plan for certified police and fire, and some market adjustments for certain positions that we have. First, I wanted to start off just reviewing our full-time personnel numbers. We do have some changes that will be occurring in fiscal year 19. We have recommended adding 4 positions. One of those is a police officer for our PD department. The other is an accountant position for finance. And then we are recommending 2 mental health officers. Just a reminder, however, that those mental health officers will be funded by a grant and not in the general fund. We're also recommending that we eliminate 2 positions in the general fund. One would be a parks crew leader. The other would be a parks worker. So you see those numbers or those changes reflected under fiscal year 19 versus what we currently have in fiscal year 18. So we've increased by a couple of numbers because some of those are balancing out themselves, but 630 would be our fiscal year 19 full-time position number if all gets approved. Some of the data that I like to bring to you around this time of year is just sort of where we've been with our vacancies and sort of personnel. So this citywide vacant position report goes back historically to fiscal year 14 to year to date for fiscal year 18. So you can see sort of our average vacancies during the fiscal year. Currently, year to date, we're at 44. So we're creeping back up. That number's increased over the last 3 years of vacancy numbers. So we're getting back up to where we were in fiscal year 14. That's a sign to me that, our market is getting rich with regards to opportunities out there, and people are pulling up and maybe going to either oil field positions that are starting to increase out there in the marketplace or other occupations. So I do want to recognize, however, all the departments do an excellent job in keeping up with regards to their recruitment and retaining employees. Here's our current full-time vacancy. This detail is actually as of last Monday, 6/18. This morning, whenever we ran our report, we were still at 35 vacant positions. So we run these reports on a weekly basis to keep up with staffing levels and where our vacancies are occurring. We have 0 in environmental services, which includes our solid waste division. So no vacancies there. Parks and Rec, we have 3. That includes the golf course as well. Police, we have 11 vacancies. 6 of those are licensed officers. But if you'll note the notation down at the bottom, we have extended offers to 3 police cadets that have a tentative start date of 7/9. So that 6 will go down to 3 licensed positions that we'll have vacant. The other remaining in police are administrative positions or telecommunication operators. In fire, we have 1 vacancy currently, and in public works, our largest vacancy number, 15. That seems to be where we get hit with some of the folks leaving for other opportunities, especially in our street maintenance worker positions and some of our utility equipment operators. So we have currently 15. Public Works is a large department. They're our second largest department behind PD. And they have a variety of different divisions, as you will know. But we do see our greater number in vacancies is in our streets department. And then other departments making up library and the other city departments are 4 vacancies. So a total of 35 as of Monday, and that, again, number is sustaining for this Monday. Any questions? Okay. So with that, I'd like to move into our compensation plan. I think you'll find that we are proposing something that allows us to be competitive in the marketplace, especially with regards to our vacancy numbers and the increase with regards to sort of our turnover. Our compensation plan, as I mentioned, includes an across-the-board, the step pay plan for certified police and fire, and then market adjustments for certain positions. So we're recommending that 3% across the board for all positions, with the exception of the certified police and fire, because they'll be in the step plan. We're also recommending that happen effective 10/1/18. We are recommending the step pay get funded for certified police and fire positions. And remember, these are those fire positions, certain certified positions that are already identified within our step plan. We are recommending that they get this increase on their anniversary date, which coincides with their evaluation date. As a reminder, step plans do have a performance category tied to them, so when they move up step, they need to be meeting expectations, which is why we're recommending the employee's evaluation date for the timing of that. We also, though, are recommending an average 3% market adjustment for our certified police and fire positions within the step plan. So with the 3% step and the 3% market adjustment for certified police and fire, that would give an average 6% increase for our certified police and fire positions that are within the step plan. So again, we want to coincide this market adjustment of 3% alongside their evaluation date so that the step increase as well as the market adjustment happen at the same time. We are also recommending an average 7% market adjustments for the following positions. This effective date would be the 10/1/18 date, with the exception of 1 department, which I'll come back and hit on here in a minute. But the average 7% for certified police leadership, that's including sergeants, lieutenants, captains in our police leadership division, and certified fire leadership, which includes our lieutenants, captains, and our battalion chiefs. We also wanted to look at our custodial, building maintenance technician, traffic signs and technicians, parks workers, solid waste drivers, equipment operators, street maintenance and equipment operators, and utility maintenance folks. So a variety of different positions that we looked at throughout the city where we felt like we needed to come back and apply a market adjustment to maintain some competitiveness as well as get into the marketplace and make sure that we're retaining the talent that we've invested in. In regards to solid waste, Solid waste being an enterprise fund and that funding being different than general fund, we were able to move back in March and make their increases effective March 26, which means that they received their increase earlier than the 10/1 date. They will not receive another increase 10/1. They received theirs back in March. But we were able to get that done due just to the funding source of it being an enterprise fund versus the general fund. So here is our compensation plus market adjustment sort of overall total chart. And I know Gilbert in his presentation will be going over these numbers again with you. But you can sort of see where we're at. As a reminder, fiscal year 17, we did not have a pay program. Fiscal year 18 was the 1,000 one-time lump sum that was not added to the base pay. But we also funded the 3% average step for certified police and fire for fiscal year 18. So you see those numbers in there as well. And then for fiscal year 19, those numbers include our 3% across the board. It includes our step pay program for certified police and fire, market adjustments, as well as the personnel additions that we have added. There is a carryover with regards to the fire and police step pay plan. I know Gilbert will go into that in greater detail with regards to splitting that up, and that's primarily due to the fact that we're recommending that happen on the individual's evaluation date versus the 10/1 date. I also like to look at the history of what we've done in the past. And so this chart shows just sort of a pay history that the city has done since fiscal year 15. In 15, we did provide the 3% pay for performance and then the average 3% step pay for certified police and fire positions. In fiscal year 16, we had a 3% across the board, the 3% step for certified police and fire. We came back around and added additional 2.5% on average market adjustment for certain positions within PD and fire. As you recall, fiscal year 17, we did not have a pay program. Fiscal year 18, we still struggled, but we were able to do a one-time stipend pay for the majority of our employees. And then fire, we were able to fund the step plan, which was an average 3% step. Again, as a reminder, that one-time stipend pay did not get into the base pay. It's just a lump sum payment that employees receive. So really the way employees look at it, we haven't had a pay increase for the last 2 years. So a little bit about how that impacts our proposal impact on positions. I'm going to start with an example of the senior police officer. Our senior police officer current base salary, this doesn't include any kind of certification pay, it's just strictly the base pay, is $48,700. If we only fund the step, then that particular senior police officer would move from step 1 to step 2, which is $50,103. And again, that's an average 3%. We're recommending the step plus market adjustment, which would take that $48,700 and move that senior police officer to $51,606 as a base compensation annual salary. We also had the opportunity to be a part of sort of an informal market study, if you will, that Sugar Land actually performed. Sugar Land sent out a while back our 2018 or asked for 2018 rates for public safety, and we were actually able to get a summary. So I wanted to put that in there just to show sort of how we're comparing with cities like Sugar Land. I know, Mayor, you had mentioned a comment a few meetings back around being competitive maybe with those larger markets compared to maybe what we've done in the past. And so you can see there sort of on average for those larger departments, and that included the Houston, San Antonio, Dallas area, so some pretty major metropolitan areas. $52,889 is a minimum for police officers. So we're trailing behind some in our senior police officer market data, and I think that's a reflection of, you know, some years we have the funding for a pay program and others we do not.
Cheryl, so average minimum. So Sugar Land had a minimum for the similar position in the pay grade. So they took that minimum, then went over to a few other cities, took the same minimum and averaged them. That's
Exactly.
exactly
Yes,
what
sir.
that is. Okay.
So a similar example for our firefighter EMT. Our firefighter EMT current annual salary for a step 4 is $43,968. Our fiscal year step only, if we fund just the step, would bring that firefighter EMT up to $45,399. The step plus market adjustments we're recommending would bring that then up to $46,761, but you can see then that same market data that we got from the Sugar Land area shows a minimum for firefighter EMT upwards around $49,000. I did go out and do some recent job searching just to see what was out there in the marketplace, and Katie was also recruiting for firefighter EMTs, and they're listing around that 50,000 mark with regards to entry-level positions. So when we compare ourselves, which we typically have not done, to those larger markets, we're trailing behind. And so it's important to probably continue to look at not only adjustments with the step, but market adjustments as well. Other positions in the entry-level hourly rates that we're looking at, we'd like to get some of our entry-level positions up into a competitive market range. Parks worker level 1, we currently start them out at $10 an hour. I understand that there's a fast food chain here in Victoria that their cooks are making $11 an hour. So it's very hard sometimes when you see that advertisement, and we know that we've got employees making $10 an hour. So we're recommending that we get up to some level of competitive and make that $11 an hour as an entry-level position. And of course, then they have a means to move up to a level 2 or a level 3 based on skill sets that they obtain within the Parks Department. Custodial, we want to again raise that minimum from 10 to 11. The streets maintenance worker, we're asking for $12 an hour as a minimum for our street maintenance worker versus the 10 that we currently have at. If you recall, in Public Works, that was the largest number of vacancies that we have is in our street maintenance department. So we're really hoping that with the $12 an hour, we can attract and retain our current workforce. Utility maintenance worker, the 3% gets them to $11.95, and we made a little of adjustment to $12. We wanted to make sure that we lined those two positions up so that they're making similar in pay, since they're similar type positions versus them being so different. So both would be making the $12 minimum. Building maintenance technicians, we would like to raise to $12.50 versus $11.60. Traffic signs techs, $13.65. And then the solid waste drivers, which we moved back in March, with a CDL license, we've got them sitting at $15 an hour from the $12.64. So in conclusion, I always like to bring back that we strive to be an employer of choice. We continue to do that with the offers that we're bringing to you tonight for the fiscal year 19 pay program and personnel changes. We have a lot to offer, I think, for employees, a stable workforce, value of our employees, a respectful work environment. But we couldn't do any of that without the hardworking employees that we have within the city. So we appreciate every single one of them, and they do help us enhance the livability of our community. So, any questions?
Just one, Colby may have to answer, but I know he always gives brief answers. How were you able to reduce 2 positions? Generally speaking, efficiencies or?
No, we're moving it to a contract.
Okay.
So we contracted out the mowing, and we'll eliminate those 2 positions. And the mowing is going to allow us to mow more frequently.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Did I get it right, Colby? It's in my slides. Yeah, but
Oh, okay.
that's it.
Thank you.
That's it.
Okay, thank y'all very much.
Thank you, Cheryl.
I guess I'm more interested in the 1.5 million, telling us how we're going to find that to
Well,
pay all this
and that
stuff.
brings a good
We'll
point
get to
up.
it.
But it's all funded in here, so everything that we talk about tonight, it is funded, so,
Quick question.
yes, sir.
When do we discuss the benefits the employees receive when they're hired?
Well, the only thing we'll bring back later is the health insurance. We usually do that in August because health insurance is so fickle. The further we can get into the budget. Now, Gilbert's going to talk about a little bit tonight. We're going to need to do some transfers into the health fund to shore it up a little bit. Is that what you were talking about, Ricky, the health
Part of it,
insurance? That's usually the only thing we bring back. If there's another benefit you'd like for us to discuss, you'll just let me know, or
Didn't know if there was gonna be any changes that were gonna affect the employees
on the health insurance.
and retirement or anything else was gonna change.
No changes with the retirement system, the state retirement system. But we will be talking about health insurance. I think I think the first meeting in August is our plan on that. Yes, sir. And we will be making some suggested changes. But otherwise than that, the rest of the benefits packages are the same. Okay, Gilbert.
That's my signal. Council, Mayor, y'all should receive the package, so y'all probably know a lot of the answers already. So I'm gonna give you the high level from general fund perspective, financial. Tonight, several department heads are gonna dive in their department, so I'm not gonna go diving in their department, so I'm not gonna lose their thunder. I'll let them do it. So I'm just gonna keep it high. But your council, you tell me if you need to go dive, we dive. So anyway, a few disclaimers. First of all, it's typical standard disclaimer. You know, it's a work in progress. Still working on some projections. I should have that wrapped up by the end of this week or the first week of July. As you all know, I don't get the certified tax roll to July 25th, but I got a pretty good idea by now. Probably you do too. And of course, manager would be submitting a balanced budget to the point at least revenue equal or exceed the expenses. Now the outline, it's a little different last year, so we're taking a twist. Let's put the revenues in front, like Ms. Garrett suggested. I think it's a good idea because we want to talk about tax rate ahead of time. And then what I'm going to do is present the expense budget. When I say all-inclusive, ladies and gentlemen, this means cartwheel. I mean, I'm talking one-time expenses, new programs, everything loaded in. I'm going to show you that number. And then I'm going to show you a reoccurring budget, what I call baseline, where I want to show you, I want to take those new expenses out. I want to show you the 2019 pretty bare without any new stuff in it and compare that to the 2018. So you can see really your baseline increasing or decreasing. Does that make sense to y'all? Ms. Scott, you have that look now. So basically it's that.
So far, so good.
Okay, good. That's all I need to know. And then after I do that, I'm gonna go back and start talking piece by piece. I'm gonna talk about the reoccurring new programs, as you heard Cheryl is one of them, or that's all of them. And I'm gonna talk about high level from one-time expenses, and then I want to bring it back all together and talk about the fund balance, okay? It should go a little faster than last year. Not as fast, but a little faster. So let's talk about revenues. I hope this graph works because I've been having problems with it. The revenue side, we're looking at about $48.1 million. Sales tax, 16.2 is at 33.8%. Property tax is about $16.7 million. Franchise, 5.5. Other financial sources, these are basically are transferred in from the other funds. About $3.6 million. Ambulance charges, not the contract. This is when we send to pick up ambulance, it's insurance and everything else. It's 1.9 million, close to $2 million. Now here's the fire contract. It's going up 150 to $1.8 million. That's 3.8%. Then you got the courts, what I call fine and forfeiture. It's $1.1 million. Then you got license and permits, building permits, alcohol and everything, permits, $942,000. Intergovernmental revenue or others. Basically, here's the sales tax corporation. We have an agreement with them that when we manage some of their projects, we have a 5% charge in each project for engineering, for supervising and everything else. That's $300,000 of that is basically part of that $470,000. And other charges, basically garage sales, stuff like that. And miscellaneous, salvage, sales of salvaged assets, vehicles, interest income. Now, let's talk about the revenues. Sales tax. For the 19, I'm proposing about around 16.3. Of course, the budget for the 18 is 14.7. Of course, we're looking at about a $1.6 million increase. Is about 10.9%. Now, let's take a look a little more closer. As you recall, from fiscal year 11 to 15, we had 5 great years of sales tax, averaged about $17 million. And of course, it's mostly related to Eagle Ford Shale, the boom. And then you had 2 years of decline. You had 17 and 16, mainly due, in my opinion, is the oil market, which went down, which has a chain of effect. In 16, you had a $1.7 million drop from budget, and in 17, another $1.8 million. Now, for 18, I'm looking about a $16.3 million, which is approximately about $1.67 million higher than budget. Okay? Is that a fixed number? No. I got one more I'm still working. Hopefully they keep pretty good. I might adjust it. But folks, I'll tell you this right now. After a while, I start getting nervous. You know, you're talking to a conservative guy, and how far do you want to go high and not take that shot? So I plan to put it conservative, not too conservative, but that's what I'm aiming at. For 19, I was looking at $16.26 million. It's a slight little difference, and basically, explain that real quick. It's all has to be a construction fund. I don't know if you remember, there's some times that we get some state comptrollers go do some audits, and they send a chunk of change with a rebate, and I have to dive into why is this bubble in here. So they're sending sometimes money that relates to other fiscal years. So what I usually do is take those out so I can have a good comparison. So basically, without taking that $63,000 out, you're looking at par. Par is the same, 16.3, and rounding 16.3. Okay? Everybody else, I'm leaving it the same. Goes back to my previous comment. How aggressive do you want to get? And I'm not that far yet. Now let's talk about taxes. Right now, as of today, with the current valuation I have seen, and the last one I saw is June the 12th, I believe, and I had a new valuation done for me today. I'll tell you about that in a minute. But we're looking at an increase of $52,000. Well, basically, on the surface, you can see there's no tax increase. It's just only new increases and new improvements. Basically, that's what it is. About $17.6 million. Let me get into it real quick. Right now, again, with the numbers I'm seeing, we could expect at least a growth rate compared to last year about 4.8% lower. What does that mean? As you all know, as your appraised values go down, the effective tax rates go up. Why? Because the law is set that way in order to generate the equivalent of revenues that you would generate this year in the future years. Does that make sense? And it's vice versa the other way. Inverse relationship. So, real quick, as you recall, the certified tax roll at July 25th, bottom line number was $3.7 billion. As of June the 13th, that number, and keep one thing in mind, these are moving numbers, okay? Because they're not certified to July 25th. But I'll give you a button in a minute. But if you compare as at that time shot to last year's time shot, you're looking at a $177 million drop in valuation. That's your 4.8% drop, okay? Right now, we're looking at improvements of about $17.6 million. You put that on there, so you reduce it down to 4.3. But remember, effective tax rate is calculated prior to the new improvements. Now, as I mentioned, I looked at the current new values. It hasn't moved much. It went up a 0.112. It's barely moving. But to take away from this is that don't expect a huge growth. And I think it's pretty safe to say I don't expect zero growth. I expect a reduction in growth. That's what my gut feeling is telling me right now, which of course, again, I'm repeating myself, it's going to translate to a higher effective tax rate, which is going to be higher than your current tax rate you have right now to generate the same revenues that you're currently doing now. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. So with that in mind, proposed tax rate with these current numbers, it's a moving target. Numbers showing about 61.98 cents. The M&O 35.72. Debt tax rate 26.6. With the current valuation, 1 penny is $3.43. It used to be about $3.60. So it does take a hit. That's at 97% collection rate. Excuse me. Last year's tax rate is 59.52, and we're not assuming any debt at all. The effective tax rate with this current valuation, doing the tax roll calculation, everything else comes out to 61.98. Of course, as I mentioned, the proposed tax rate we're asking is equate to the effective tax rate. The rollback per the city ordinance, it's at 6372. Of course, we are lower than that number. And if you want from the state level, it's 6479. We're lower than 2.81 cents from the state requirement. And keep in mind, just because your effective tax rate will increase, those individuals with a frozen property exemption will not see that increase. They stay where they're at. Okay?
Is that impact is figured into all of your numbers?
Yes, ma'am. Basically, I'm given an estimate of what we collected last year on the frozen property. That number is not going to move. If it's going to move, it's going to increase, taking from my current valuation, people who get 65 will be moving to that area. But yes, that number is in there. Okay, how'd I go back there? Let me go back. I need to go to slide 7. Okay, we're back here. As to the rest, basically on franchise is a modest increase of 23.7 because of growth I expect there from some of the rates that we passed from Waste Management and Republic. Other financial sources, basically that $46,000 reduction. In 2018, I had a one-time transfer from $700 million over to the general fund. Why? We had some excess cumulative working capital balance. We don't want to keep too much over there, so I moved it over there. And general fund needed it last year anyway. So that's not going to happen. So that's that reduction. Ambulance, pretty technically flat. County Fire Service, $150,000. That's based on contract terms. Fine and forfeiture, it's $78,000. I'm adjusting it based on current collection trends. And as you recall, we kind of modify our, I call it the warrant roundup. We don't do that anymore. So license and permits, I did it. Oh, license and permits, $83,000. Basically on that is an increase in liquor permits and building permits. Right now in 18, I have a huge increase. I'm not assuming that same level for next year because a lot of that has to do with Hurricane Harvey. Intergovernmental, $3,200. The charges for other services, it's, I think, yeah, I know what they are. It's adjusting for the trend for library fees because I'm not collecting, I assume too high, but I brought it down a little bit, and a gazebo rental. Miscellaneous, $59,000. Basically what that is I'm adjusting interest income upwards. So last year we had a revenue budget of 46.3, proposing a 48.1. Of course, that's your increase of $1.8 million, a 4% increase. Any questions? Okay, that was easy. Tax rate, I'm not going to spend too much time. Basically, the whole takeaway from here is I want to remind council last year, remember we increased the tax rate 1 cent at the 2018 budget. It was mainly for PD, for staffing, and we did the right-of-way mowing. So that's that 1 cent. That's why it shows us. That's the whole purpose of this slide. Again, I'm not going to spend much time on this. Basically, I just want to point out 58% goes to M&O and 42% goes to debt service side. And of course, I do this every year. I break down how the M&O tax rate is allocated accordingly to each department. For example, public safety gets about 59.4% of the tax rate. Municipal public works get about 15%. Parks and Rec, 6.4%. General administration, what I mean by general administration is legal, finance, city manager, city secretary, human resource, and I include also building service and custodian there. Development services, 4.8% of it. Library, 4.6%, and of course non-departmental, 2.3%. Now this one's just a slide I always do because I just think it's more, how do we compare it to prior years? Now, I take the 2009 budget, I adjusted for the CPI index from 2009 all the way to 2018. I also adjusted for the growth rate over the time frame. Now, full disclosure, you can take like PD, you can compare that and some other departments. There's one department I know for sure that, you can take your development services. In 2009, you had 3831, and 2019, that same department is only 3240. Well, you got to dig in a little deeper. I don't have a lot of slides to give this information, but over the years, some departments have gone through a reorganization, broken up, restructured a little different, so we have some cost reduction. So I was making sure there's one or two departments in here that you would have to dig a little deeper if you really want to get into these numbers. But I'm only presenting this just for as a flavor. That's it. Okay? Also,
But what it shows is we've not had a whole lot of growth.
I don't want to, you can take away that.
We've streamlined and we've added employees
That's
through the
correct.
years, but we've still done a good
But
job.
overall, that's the whole message.
Yeah.
And I also added a slide to show what the numbers I used and everything else. If anybody wants to look at it, do their own calculation, there it is. Let's talk about expenses. Anything on the revenues that I left off that you want to talk about? Great. All right, expense side. Currently, we're looking at a $50.1 million budget compared to last year of 46.6, which of course is about a $3.5 million increase over last year. Public safety went up by 1.8. Let me stop here. I'll repeat myself. All inclusive. That includes one-time expenses. That includes new programs, pay programs, and everything else. So it's apples and apples, okay? So public safety went up by 1.8. Public works, 71,000. Park and rec, 775,000. General administrative, 232. Development services, $194,000. Library, 209,000. Of course, non-departmental, 132,000. Now, in order to understand what causes the $3.5 million, you have to understand, well, how much are we talking about new one-time expenses this year? I know a lot of y'all know this, but I'm repeating it for the public. You also have to understand what was your current baseline for 2018, so you have some comparison moving forward. And you also have to understand what are your new reoccurring expenses that you want to add to the new budget. Well, straightforward is a quick math. Here's the all-inclusive number I mentioned earlier. I presented you a budget in 2019 of $52.1 million. Last year's total budget, all-inclusive, was 48.6. If we strip out the one-time expenses, now you got a reoccurring budget line, okay? Meaning that this is what you expect moving forward. 2019, you're looking at $47.6 million. 2018, you're looking at $46.1 million, a $1.44 million increase, or 3.1%. Now, let's take it a little further. I want to take out the new proposed reoccurring for 2019 and show you baseline to baseline, what I call baseline. So we got a recurring expense of $1.3 million. Take that out. And now you can compare apples and apples from last year's baseline recurring to this year's baseline recurring. So this year you're looking about, right now in 2019, $46.3 million. Last year, $46.1. You got a $172,000 increase, or a 0.4. Basically, in a nutshell, that is fuel costs. It went up. That's recurring, so we adjust that. Light, utilities. There might be some payroll adjustment. In other words, people were budgeted at this level, they left, retired, and we hired some new people. They're at a different level. So all those changes, those are your baseline adjustments, okay? You with me, Ms. Scott? Good. So let's talk about the reoccurring from a baseline perspective. Now, you got a different picture. Public safety, went up as a net $96,000. Personnel's went down by $131, M&O went up by $194, and capital went up by $32,000. So the overall effect on a basis to basis reoccurring baseline, is $96,000. I'm not planning to get into the details. I'll let the department heads save some time as well. This might be two items I will get into. Public Works went down by 181,000. Personnel went down by 66,000. M&O by 120, and overall capital went up by $5,000. Park and Rec went down by 46,005. General Administration, again, this is legal, city manager, HR, building service. I'm leaving somebody else, city secretary, custodial. Here, we had an increase of $92,000. Basically, from this point, from the payroll side, we had a $16,000 reduction. You got a decrease in workman's comp, and you're going to see these across the board on all departments. And when I have a net payroll adjustment, what I mean by that is, again, people leaving or hire at a different level or decide to change health plans, et cetera, et cetera. We had a $12,000 adjustment there. We have a vehicle replacement for building service of $38,000. Increase in professional service, 21. Keep in mind, this is across about 5-6 departments. Education went up by 16,000. Internal services, again, it's going to be a tune for the whole. Every department is going to tell you it will increase across the board. Here, $12,000. And the other M&O expenses, $16,000. Computer replacement, $4,000. So that's your $92,457 increase. On development services, we had a net $111,000. The whole focus point here is that we increased demolition budget by $60,000. Here's your internal services again, $8,500. Merchant bank charges went up by close to $10,000. Again, merchant bank or bank fees that they charge us every time we accept credit cards. And of course, the net from various different type of M&O, you're looking at $14,000, and various different computers for $15,000. That's your $111,000 increase. Library went up by approximately went down $30,000. Non-departmental went up by $38,000. Basically, there we had some internal service, which is our safety overhead, charged out, and TML insurance premiums went up. So overall, explaining the $172,000 increase, payroll side of it went down by $246. M&O went up by $373, and capital went up by $45,000. That is from a baseline of this year to last year's, $172. Another way to say that, that's just addressing any type of inflation that happened throughout the year. It's in that number. Any questions, Ms. Scott?
You just now said comparison of this year to last year.
Well, I'm saying it's 18.
Okay.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
it's-
I got to
so
be
it's
careful with that.
It's this year to,
2018 compared to 2019.
thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Any other questions? Okay. So let's talk about the proposed program. Maybe we only have one, and Cheryl had addressed it all. But I want to take it from a different angle. Of course, we have the Certified Police Department step plan / market adjustment. From a cash perspective, we're going to spend about $294,000 for that category. Now, keep one thing in mind. The total cost for that plan is approximately $635. As Cheryl mentioned, these will be paid out on an anniversary date. So there's a cash timing effect. Does everybody understand that? To make it simple, somebody's anniversary date is half the year. Well, half of the pay program would be implemented or budgeted. In the remaining years, the whole thing would be fully funded. Okay, so I have a carryover or cost ready implemented for next year of approximately $341,000. Okay, which we have planned out for that. Moving forward, I just call this supervisory management. I don't know exact, but these are the other folks who are not in the step plan. Okay, certified police officers and PD. You got 3% cross board / market adjustment. Total cost term for that is $287. Then you got your other departments all gathered together, the 3% across the board and the market of $597. And of course, as Cheryl mentioned, we have some new staff position being requested. We have one police officer, $53,000. We have two health police officer, which will be grant funded and accounted for in the grant for 128. General fund will not get hit with this. They might get a little portion for the times they're not working on the side of the grant.
And Gilbert, that's a mental health, just so I know.
Mental, yes.
Everybody, I think,
Not presidential fitness.
no, it's not. So it's.
No,
it's-
okay, good
so,
point.
yeah, mental
It,
health.
it said that earlier in Cheryl's presentation.
Well, that's why I had her go first, just to make sure everybody understands what I'm talking about.
And we already have one officer.
We have one
already,
officer.
And we know we're gonna get grant money for an additional one, so.
And then one account for $43,000. New positions, $96,000. So the pay program positions is your $1.3 million new reoccurring, new costs that we move forward if approved. Okay? One-time expenses, not planning to go drill into it again. Each category, I have the department heads, they're gonna talk about their one-time costs. I might hit some highlights from memory. You got street department, basically that 1.6 is we looked at on the CIP. That's all related mainly. We got some vehicles there. Parks, 702,000. Maybe there's a lot of, he'll talk about it. There's a lot of infrastructure improvement he's proposing and a track replacement. Police and fire, those two, I'm gonna take it together real quick. I don't know if you recall, but I'll remind you, in 2016, we acquired some radios from Motorola. We purchased them, and part of the agreement was a lease agreement payback that will start in 2019. The first payment, the second payment will be 2020 at 0% interest, of course. So guess what? 2019 is coming around. So I got an allocated portion to each one based on radio usage. So the overall turnkey is about $780,000 just for the radio, first payment. Next year, the same amount. And of course, there are some other things in PD, like some data conversion. I think JJ would talk about it. And fire department, we have an ambulance in there. Traffic department, 392. Libraries, 238,000. There's some carpet improvements there. Non-departmental, here's part of the deal. Been looking at the health funds past several months, and it's very depressing. Of course, hopefully it's kind of steadied off. Hopefully, holds its own. I'm not saying it's gaining, just holding that blood clog. I learned that this past week at forgot the name of it. Forget it. But the point here is that we have to. Well, I'm recommending that we have to shore up the working capital at the health plan reserve by $1 million. General fund portion is 236, and of course, water will have its portion, and environmental will have its portion. So that's one of my recommendations. I asked Ms. Garrett about it, and I think that's a very prudent decision to do, I believe, because we had some very unpredictable high claims that came in. So, you remember when the fund was about $5 million, and the fund balance down to 2.3, 2.4. And that's not enough to carry forward. Plan department is $60,000 basically on the plan department. You have
I'm sorry, back to that health fund.
Yes.
And you may have said it and I didn't hear you. What is it? What was it ending last?
Right now, I'm
What is
looking
it
at
now?
about 2.3, 2.4.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been
Okay.
coming down slow. It didn't go 5 to 2. It just been dropping slowly, steady. Because, I used to thought maybe one day that thing will start stopping, but it's not. So to be on the safe side, we need to shore up their funds by $1 million to have a little cushion there. And hopefully, Cheryl and Ms. Garrett will bring a plan out on the health side, and maybe we can make some recommendation how we can help minimize that impact in the future.
Okay.
And
Okay?
then, too, don't forget, a couple of years ago, we moved $1 million.
Well, that was about 3 years ago.
to
The $1 million,
set up
at that
trust.
time, we had about $6 million
Sure.
in a reserve.
Sure, but we did move some money out.
We
of
did move
reserve.
money out
Yeah.
to fund that
OPEB.
Yes.
OPEB trust, and that's another bullet we can use, but I want to keep it dry. There's no sense using that right now because you can still have the issue and the problem.
Oh.
The other one still goes nicely, earning those interest rates. I think city's going to be in good shape after I leave and everything else. So anyway, so that was a good investment from my perspective. Building services, $37,000. Basically, that's some equipment here, AC chillers at the City Hall. Custodial department, that's a vehicle. The reason why it's a one-time expense is because they ever get a vehicle replacement. So this is gonna last a while. Finance department, just a copier. Court enforcement, just an upgrading software, a human resource, MFLA software program, $1,500. For the whole thing, total package is for years at $4.5 million. Okay? Again, department heads will go through these a little slower by category. I'm moving off. You don't have any questions. Doing good. Ms. Pulaski, you had look in your eyes. You had a question.
Well, you're almost done. I'll ask you. I'll wait.
Okay. So I'm gonna wrap it up all together. I started earlier. Thank you. As I mentioned earlier, last year we had a baseline reoccurring of 46.1. I showed you that in the previous slide. Remember? Okay. Then I showed you what the changes were of $172,000 by the various divisions. Then I also showed you what our new reoccurring expenses are being proposed, $1.27 million. Then, of course, I showed you a while ago the one-time expenses. If you take all those items up, you're back to the proposed budget right now of 52.1. Does that make sense? I started you with a 52, dissected, cut it up, kind of explain it real quick, and I'm bringing it back together. Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'm reading in too much of your looks. I'm
No,
sorry.
no, it's all right. It's more with respect to the pay program. Do
Okay.
you have more slides on that?
No, sir. Cheryl's here to answer your question.
I don't know if it's possible, and I probably should talk to you and Charmel maybe later, but just a longer-term view of it. I mean, I see where y'all have built in a solution for this next budget year. Not a solution, but a plan. And I had, a lot of my comments up here had been about a more long-term view, if possible. I don't know, like, when I think a budget, I line item things out and put that money over here and keep an eye on it. But I look further down the road in my business. I try to. I know we're prevented from looking too far ahead and making decisions. But for those budgets beyond, are you going to maintain any sort of reserve? Are we just going to lump it in the general fund and go through this every time? Or is there any way to carve it out separately, to commit? You can't? It's an
Well,
honest,
The thing, I think you can't, when Gilbert gets to that, what's excess in the fund balance, if you want to, you can put that aside in a salary line item, but the thing is, it's not gonna be recurring money. You could do your one-time stipends with it.
Bottom line, I'm sorry to interject, but decision got to be made as to moving forward, what kind of pay programs. Is this going to be something that y'all want to make sure it's a recurring cost, that you always have that fund there, and you might not be able to use all of it, but you can use portion, but you can let it grow again. And you got to figure out a way, well, there's several ways, to how you keep that fund generating funds in there. And the only way you can do that is you got sales tax coming above normal, or you got your tax rate. Those are your two source of mechanism. Sales tax is not really reliable too much. The other choice is that you can do this at one time, as Ms. Garrett was saying. That's just a one time. You take a shot at it and put some money and let it grow and take a shot at it. But, it's not added to a base. So it all depends your objective and how you want to move forward and what kind of perception you want to give down the road.
We do it, I think, with hot funds and stuff like that, and we try to build some up, and this is
Absolutely.
just a different type of expenditure, and maybe this is a problem with no solution or vice versa. Maybe I'm just looking at a way to make it easier to show a path of getting to those market rates and over the next 5 years. I don't know. Maybe we just need to talk later some more. Anyway.
I have a question that's kind of related to that, I think. I think it was slide 17. This was a great presentation. I could find the slide numbers.
Oh, that's a lot to say. Thank you.
Let's see if,
I don't have 17 on here. What's 17?
it's proposed new reoccurring expenses.
Gotcha.
And it has the red circle in the middle of it.
Carry
All right.
over.
Yeah, with the carryover.
Yeah.
That,
You just passed it.
Oop.
There you go.
because you made a comment when you were doing that. If I'm seeing this correctly, the total cost is 635,000. You said we have a plan for 2020, but the way I'm looking at 2020, we would have 635,000 because this is a new plan, plus the 341 carryover.
Right.
And that is, so partially what's your plan, and partially how much of that is included in the, I think, Cheryl was basically, in round numbers, doubling. And
Okay.
so it's really, she's talking about 800,000, which would be a recurring expense.
No, she has $1.2 million, which she encompassed all
But,
that together.
but if you compare 2018 to 2019, because part of that's already,
No,
all right,
okay, this is just strictly 19.
okay.
It had nothing to do with 18 yet.
Okay, this is strictly 19.
19.
And I
So,
think I'm going from 19 to 20
okay, well,
in that, so this part is a step program. And for my discussion, I'm going to call it 635, even though it's not completely in there.
correct.
And then, but the other part of what she's adding in 19 would also, all of those increases would also recur in 20.
The
Okay, let me see if I-
Carryover from 18 is included in
Oh,
the
they-
19 number.
Yes, well, the 18, we had a step plan. I mean, you're talking about the step plan.
Well,
That was already accounted for.
I'm really mixing apples and
Yeah,
oranges.
let's go back to 18 now. I think I know where you're going with this. In 2018, we did have step plan. But if you go back to the budget, there was a carryover effect there. But I also had excess recurring revenue back in 2018 to accommodate that going forward. So I already have taken care, the same thing is going to happen here if I showed you.
Right.
I'll have $341,000. I want to show you at the end of the slide, a few more slides, I want to have some excess revenue exceeding my expense. 341 is technically spoken for already for 2020. So I did have the 18 happen already, but that's already absorbed in the 18 budget already. Is that making sense to you? This is new money, new allocation moving forward. My total cost is 635, but from a cash perspective, what I want to pay out within that time frame, it's only $294,000.
Okay.
But I have to account for the other effect moving forward of 231.
And it's a similar situation with the other staff as well. No, that was effective October 1.
It's all, yeah,
October
since
1.
we're all getting it
Everybody
October
gets,
1.
yeah, this is the
Okay.
only exception.
And that is somewhere already calculated into these numbers.
Yes, ma'am.
As recurring numbers.
Yes, ma'am. For example,
It was probably at the very beginning and I missed it. Or
let me
I
go.
didn't miss it, I knew it was in
no,
there,
no,
but
it's a good question.
I'm trying to see how that,
Right here. You see that
So-
$1.3 million? Oh, it's in that number.
okay.
If you go back to the slide, all those costs add up to 1.274. Okay? So it's, I don't have a detail, but it's in that number of public safety, in that $773,000. In there, you got your step plan, your market, the 3% across the board, and the staff. You're not going to tie dollar for dollar, just the overall.
We budget for the full impact of the pay program, whether they get it first day of the year or halfway through the year.
I guess what threw me was, in your new recurring programs, you only have the step plan listed, and the salary increase is also a recurring. That's, I was just not seeing it all paralleled.
Okay?
But I see how you do
It's-
have it
it's-
in your numbers. I see it's in there.
Okay. I apologize if I'm not addressing your question or coming across right.
I apologize for not asking it very well.
And
But
the
we can talk about it offline more We can go
just to
through it.
further clarify what I've been trying to say, it seems like we always, every year, we hope property valuations go up or sales tax go up so we can give raises. That's what it seems like. I'm talking about trying to, you can't carve the general fund up in perpetuity forever in line items. You got to get a big lump sum and go forward. I'm talking about, should we carve out for compensation going forward? That's what I'm trying to say. And maybe I'm wrong, Tom, but did you?
Well, and I've been doing this too long. I need to get out of it. But that being said, we do fight this each year because all the salaries come out of general fund. But we have enterprise funds, water, wastewater, the garbage and so on. We've made great strides in getting those more in line with the cost of those services. So they are not a drag on the general fund. We are going to have variations in sales tax. Economy goes up, economy goes down. Nothing we can do about that. Property tax is fairly stable, but you don't want to burden the taxpayer unnecessarily. Where is our stability? And our stability comes from taking those enterprise funds and making them correct. And that will add to the stability, at least to some small degree.
Yeah.
I'd like to make one correction, if you don't mind. The salaries in those enterprise funds are paid out of those any pay increase comes out of those enterprise funds. So what Gilbert's talking about is just those departments that are in the general fund for salary programs. So, but you are right about trying to move toward where they're paying for it. But any salaries in the enterprise fund are paid out of the enterprise fund, like solid waste, the utility departments.
But we're constantly chasing moving targets.
Sure.
It's variations in these funds each year.
Sure.
And I don't know how to stabilize it. My suggestion would be, let's work on what we can work on.
Well, we have an ending fund balance for insurance, and we've done OPEB. I mean, that's the same thing. I don't know, Charmel, if that's something that can be done. It's just,
Well, we've talked about, we can sweep money and put it into a reserve for salary. The concern becomes, though, if you add that to base, how are you going to replenish that fund? So that's, so how are we, I guess maybe you're thinking the fund gets so large, it's enough to add to base. But, that gambling term I
Yeah,
like to use,
yeah.
betting on the come, you kind of, that's kind of when we start talking about matching reoccurring expenses with recurring revenue. But you are correct, it's a struggle every year because of we're so dependent on sales tax and it is so volatile.
so it doesn't matter how you show it, I think, maybe, and I can see that. That's why we need to discuss it
Sure.
further.
Sure.
I mean, the only way you show it is you show it in your fund balance or you carve it out, show a reserve.
Yeah.
But the only
Well-
thing, back on Ms. Garrett's point of view, is like, you would have to put a big seed in the trust side, and let it generate so much money, and don't touch it. And use that, start carving up, don't use all of it, so it keeps regenerating.
I'm not talking about encumbered amounts, though.
No, this is not
So to your point, Charmel, I understand, you give it out, it's got to be there next year. This line item would stay unencumbered. And maybe that doesn't matter. I don't know.
No,
Okay,
it don't matter. Because what you end up
well-
doing, you go,
okay.
I'm sorry.
You transfer out of it into the general fund, and it's,
If you want to set up a separate fund and keep it by itself, fine, but just like, I would suggest you set up a separate reserve account in the general fund. It's its own account.
yeah.
Instead of having a fund balance available for whatever, you got a general fund restricted for whatever it is.
Yeah. I mean, if you had $3 million extra and this full compensation package cost 1.5, you'd have 1.5 left. And not that there's constant unlimited needs, but that 1.5, if a council said, you know what, we're gonna hold that for next time just for compensation, but then again, that's committing to future years, I don't know. Okay, I'll let it go for
And
now.
then two, how do you replenish that fund? Because you're gonna
Yeah.
have to come up with that 1.5 every year,
Yeah.
but so no.
Well, there's a joke
Imagine
about a
the
farmer that
optics.
won $1 million. The news people were out there asking what he's gonna do with it. He said he figured he'd just keep on farming until he used it all up. And that's what we could be doing with our reserve fund.
Okay. What? Okay.
We can come
Sorry.
up with ideas, it's just, is it
Okay.
okay to do? This is where I left off, kind of bring all the pieces back together, show you the 2019 budget, 52.1. Now I'm going to move into the fund balance side of it. Right now, currently, I'm proposing a beginning fund balance for next fiscal year, 2019, of 17.7. I'm proposing recurring revenues of 48.1.
Hang on one second,
I'm
thank
sorry.
you. Yeah, page 22.
Page numbers down to the left corner.
I was following and then we all started jumping around. Thank you.
No problem. You got recurring expenses of $47.6 million. We talked about one-time expense of $1.55 million, projecting an ending fund balance of 13.7. Based on our minimum fund balance policy of 25%, that equates to $13.025 million. So we have an excess based on that policy and these numbers being projected this way of $686,000. Also, as you can tell, your recurring versus recurring expenses, we have recurring revenue exceeding recurring expenses at this moment in time of $564. But $371,000 is kind of going to be used in the forward moving on. Does that make sense to y'all?
Oh,
Yeah, I knew you.
lost you.
I expect that look.
For the carryover for
The
the pay
carryover.
program.
So
That's
right
how
now,
he's funding that.
If I take my expenses, I got about 564 reoccurring revenues that I can use somewhere else. But I say, you can't use all of it because $371,000 of that step plan market pay, it's going to take effect, some of it in 2020 because of the anniversary date. Okay?
Got it, thank you.
So you're down to two something change, okay? Now, just to recap, proposed tax rate, basically we're proposing the same thing as effective tax rate of 61.98 at this time. Eventually will change by the time we come back in August. No new bond issue, pay program, just a pay program on a cash basis, $1.2 million. Add one officer, one accountant for the general fund, $96,000. Add two, here I want to say health, police officers for $128,000, but these are grant funded, remember that? And we continue the current services and we provide $4.5 million in one-time expense. Now, I know we asked questions, but there's an option for you. I think if it's up to council moving forward. There's that Larry Lane sidewalk topic that been talked about. As our Public Works Director, that $536,000 number is a good starting number. So if we take that number and we subtract it from what I was projecting, you still got some excess of fund balance of $24,000. You're still in good shape, and your recurring revenue still exceeds your expense if you want to go that route. Let me qualify it. I still have a few months to go. I'm still feeling comfortable, but I don't want to get too comfortable, but I can make that work yet. But just a FYI, that's an option.
And the few months comments is waiting to see what sales tax does. If
Yeah, I wanna make sure
Kind
it's-
of
there's
trends like you think it's going to trend.
And that's a one-time expense. That's your option. It's here for you. But we'd like to have some feedback before August, so I can put it in there,
That would be a 2018 expense.
2019.
It would be a 2019.
$30,000 sidewalk.
To go into 19, okay.
And then too, the Leary Lane, we can have that discussion tomorrow night with Public Works too.
Absolutely.
It's it's a great time or, in
And-
July.
Just for food for thought, it can be left in fund balance. Y'all decide to do it during the year, take it out, you can take it out. I'm just saying, that's a possibility. That's what I'm saying.
And can you show us tomorrow a little more, I don't know if you already did in the CIP, a map of the proposed project? Just rough, does it include, it doesn't include closing in those ditches, it does, piping them, that's why it's so expensive.
Are there other ways to do that?
There are no school district participation?
No, sir, there's not. I would like to ask the school for some participation on their property.
That's what I was, I think,
Yeah.
There
fixing
are,
to say.
there are other ways to do it, but that would require getting right of way behind the ditch that we don't currently own. So it's another expense.
We can't just do basically an open bridge kind of a thing, or something that's permeable so that water can go through it to get to the ditch.
Oh, I was talking about along the side of the road.
Yeah,
not-
me too.
Is that,
Jan's talking about on top of the ditch, kind
like
of
a
a grade,
boardwalk.
oh, grading? Ooh.
a grade.
I
of
would
some
not
sort.
recommend that. I don't think that's gonna be, you're still gonna have something to
Gonna
put that,
maintain 'em.
to put that grate on. You're still gonna have to do some concrete footers or something, and how are you gonna maintain it? I think you're creating more problem than you're solving.
Okay, that was worth saying out loud though and hearing your answer. Thank you.
Like, how many years could we hire a bus to pick everybody up at the end of that school and drive them down and drop them off?
But you know, the
for
alternative,
530.
the alternative that Donald mentioned means getting out and getting some right of way. You know, if council wants, we can make a run at seeing if we could get some donations of those right of ways and see if we can put it, I think our preference, we'd like to do it right, and which would mean piping the ditch and curb and gutter, so. That was a record time, Gilbert.
I was glad somebody noticed it.
Well, I don't know if they were taking bets back there or not,
No,
but.
they weren't. They're counting an hour and a half. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all my presentation. Any questions? Okay, good.
And again, we'll be here tomorrow night, and you can call, ask, you know, whatever, anything comes up. So our next presentation is the police department. Chief Craig, as he gets up, marches forward.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. Tonight I present to you the proposed FY 2018-2019 Victoria Police Department budget. I'll do a real quick overview to discuss staffing, a little bit of the service delivery and the workload metrics that I've done with you in the past. We'll also talk about the proposed budget, police operations, and 911 emergency communications budgets are all lumped in together, so you'll see everything together. And then a couple just future budget issues that remain out there on the horizon. In terms of staffing, this is as of June 8th of this year. Licensed personnel, budgeted authorized strength of 123, 38 civilian positions, total authorized strength 161. Openings, I do count the job offers, so they start pretty soon. So the entry-level police officer positions are 3, and that 3 is now 4. So we have 4 civilian position openings, and this would be as of right now.
Cheryl doesn't count them until they come to work.
Well, I realized that you might pick up on the fact that those two numbers were a little different, so I wanted to make sure that I'm optimistic. You know, the glass is half full. With Cheryl, it's half empty, right? So.
She's a realist.
Just a couple of metrics. These are benchmarks that cities should be looking at in terms of police department workload, and calls for service is obviously a big part of that. I'll start with this year in 2018. This is a snapshot as of May 31st, 38,212 calls for service. If we project that out, it's 91,708. And if you look at last year in 2017, it was 98,000, and then 2016 is 93. And if we went back even further to 2015, it was about 95. So we stay in that range. Response time to emergency 911 calls for service, and this is the time in which the officers get the call to the time that average that they get on scene to emergency calls for service, that being the high potential for loss of life and or serious injury and or serious property damage. Right now, as of snapshot as 2018, you can see that we're at 6 minutes and 3 seconds, and that's a good number. In 2017, we were at 6.6, and in 2016, we were at 7.5. We've done some re-engineering and we've looked at some different calls that were causing that number to be higher. And so we've done some efficiencies to take a look at those types of calls that were impacting that. So that's one of the reasons why you're seeing the big change in the better number now.
That's good, thank you.
As far as the police department budget, as we stand now, and I'll look at just 2018, and we're about 12 million in the personnel side, as opposed to 11.7 last year, variance of 395. Maintenance and operations, we're at 2.6. Last year we were at 2.4. So the variance is another increase of 174. And capital improvements, 159 versus 103, an increase of 56. Total reoccurring expenses, police department budget is 14.8, and last year was 14.2, an increase of 626,000. We look at our one-time expenses for this year, 693,000, and last year was significantly less at 79,000. So there's a big increase in the one-time expenses. Total budget 15.5 for 2018-19 compared to 14.3, an increase of 1.2. And now what I'll do is I'll kind of get into each of those independently. In the personnel line item part of the budget, as you've already heard, we're proposing adding 1 police officer to the general fund, a tone of 53,486. We're proposing a telecommunications reorganization, a regrade. And what that is what we're doing is we take entry-level individuals that come into telecommunications as call takers. And that's a really good way to do it. The problem is it limits them just to being able to do call taking positions. They're not certified to work as a communications operator. So being able to regrade them back to being communications operators will allow us to still bring them in at the call taker position, but allow us to grow them into the position where we can put them on the floor. So to do that, we have to increase the budget to 258,000. This has already been mentioned, but the STEP plan program funding for certified STEP was 77,000. Market adjustment, again, for certified STEP was 73,000. The pay program for certified non-STEP across the board and market adjustment was 63,000. Pay program for civilian across the board and market adjustment was 60. And then there were some adjustments that only Gilbert can help me out with, but the workers' comp costs and lower entry employee costs saved us 116,000. And then, like you've already been mentioned, the 2 mental health peace officers, 128,000, and that's a Gulf Bend psychiatric emergency safety. But it's a grant funded by that we work out with Gulf Bend, where they pay. They'll pay for the 2 mental health officers on a full-time basis, and they cover virtually almost all the costs.
And JJ, just a point there, the reason we're doing this is this will allow JJ to backfill those 2 positions that'll move into the mental health officers. Right now, the 1 mental health officer has not been backfilled behind, so by separating it out, he'll be able to fill those positions. That's why you'll see his numbers go up by that amount.
That's correct. And maintenance operations side, we're proposing an increase of 174,000, and then I put just a couple of indicators of why that's happening. We've seen a little bit of an increase in software maintenance, increase in vehicle replacement charges, just because we're getting more vehicles. There was an increase in fuel costs, and then there was an increase in infotech charges to support the PD efforts. On the capital side, we saw an increase of 56,000. This is mainly due to machinery and equipment, and it's driven by equipment that both SWAT, our criminal investigations, and patrol needed. So the net increase to reoccurring expenses was 626,000. Jump to our one-time expenses. Like I said, in 17-18, we are at 79. We went to 693 proposed for this year. It's an increase of 613,000. And those are really what's driving them. The first Motorola radio payment at 480, that's a pretty significant part of that. We also have our AS 400 conversion, and what that is we have some data on our RMS system that resides on the IBM server that's at end of life. It needs to be converted over to the current system, and to do that, that's what's going to cost us.
You still have an AS400? Unbelievable. I thought, wow, well,
I had to look it up.
It's a green screen.
yeah, it's a big block. I remember them. Good Lord. Okay.
So
That's,
there's a lot of data stored out there, so.
that's getting your life out of your hardware there, man. Hats off to you, James. Wow.
As long as we're talking about conversions, we also have to convert some old microfilm. Microfilm equipment is not operational anymore, so we need to do that. And then there's some other computer hardware, software, and other type of equipment that miscellaneous equipment that amounts to 54,000. That rounds out our 693 one-time expenses. And I'd just like to keep this up there because I know that we talk about quite a bit, but we're still looking at increasing our budgeted staffing. Resource challenges are affecting service delivery. Workload demands really require additional staffing. We're still in that mode where our workload exceeds. We're pretty busy. And then a reminder that we still have that ICMA study that talked about we should be at 126 in 2013. Current strength is 122. However, we would be at 126 should council approve this proposed budget. And about 145 is probably where we really should be given our workload. But I know we're making progress. I want to keep that up there to the council, see that those are the numbers. And then finally, on just an update on the police and fire administration facility, it was awarded to Dewberry and Associates. It's an ongoing comprehensive effort with involving PD and fire department stakeholders. They've been down here several times doing meetings. We have been receiving some information from them, but we expect the final draft, final draft. It's in progress, and we expect it soon. And then we'll get that back to the city manager for review from there. That concludes my presentation. Do you have any questions?
Thank you.
Oh, thanks.
So next is library, Dana, and all her programs that she's providing. And I'm not sure if she'll say this, but she and I were talking about it the other day. The library building is the most used building of all of our city assets. With the number of patrons that go in and out of the doors, it's a tremendous amount. Still asleep, guys? Trying to wake it up?
This is all.
Hmm?
This is all. So if we finish tonight, While they're doing that, council, these are all the presentations. It is possible to finish them all tonight. But it's kind of nice sometimes to come back the next day because you slept on some of this and ask questions. Of course, we have other meetings that we can ask budgetary questions at any time. But it's possible to stay a little longer. I don't know about staff. They probably are all like, oh, I want to go home. But I know it doesn't matter.
Now, I was gonna say, I think they'd probably all be glad to get it finished.
So I'm just saying, y'all think about that for a few minutes and then maybe if, these, not to rush. This is very important. And I'm willing to sit here all night. I don't care. I'll do what it takes, but I think y'all are too. But think about that. We could finish it up. So. If the AS400 there works, I don't, is it?
Well, my next question is too, do we need to move on and come back to library, James, or?
Either's right. She does have a thumb drive. We can just
Okay.
put it on her thumb.
Okay.
We can, and we
She came
can,
very prepared.
we can take a break if anybody needs to get up and restroom break or something after this if y'all want. But think about that. We'll just keep going.
I'm fine with trudging along.
Okay. Okay. So we
What
could,
was that? I'm fine with what?
Powering through, getting it done in one night.
Oh.
I mean, if you want to split it up and be here tomorrow,
I'd rather be here tomorrow.
okay.
Because fatigue starts to set in and you can't look at the numbers correct.
okay.
I'll be fatigued tomorrow too.
Understood. Okay.
And we could, we can add like
Clearly too
fire
much
and only
caffeine.
leave 2 for tomorrow night, if that's what y'all want to do. So
And
I
go
think
back.
Tanner's ready to go tonight. Yes, okay.
Okay.
While she's continuing to work, could I ask a clarification question on something that you said on the police? When we were talking about the mental health officers, and you said that that allows him to backfill. I didn't really know what you meant. I was going to ask you later, but I
He-
thought maybe someone else would
What,
wonder.
right now, the mental health officer just
Now
came
it
out of
works.
patrol. And so he's being assigned the mental health duty, and JJ has not been able to fill his position in patrol. So, and whatever, so he's working short that position because he's dedicated
see.
to the mental health.
So once it's funded by
And-
mental health,
And
then
since we're setting it up this way in a separate grant line item, he'll be able to fill those the two positions. So they won't be working short because he's assigned somebody to the mental health.
thank you.
Okay,
You
we're ready.
Okay.
All right, good evening, council. Thank you for your patience. Well, we got that corrected. This evening, I'm going to provide a brief overview of library services and the proposed budget for fiscal year 18-19. Wanted to start off with a few of our basic statistics. Victoria Public Library is open to the public 61 hours per week. We have 32 employees, 27 full-time and 5 part-time. There are approximately 4,100 people a week that come through our doors. So we have an annual total of 215,000 people who came through our doors last year. We average about 7,000 items checked out a week for a total in 2017, a little over 375,000. This was a decrease from the previous year. As you can see on the chart, we were up at 396 the previous year. But as I reported to council earlier this year, the library was closed to the public for 13 days in 2017 due to damage from Hurricane Harvey. We did have a really strong showing in 2017 with program attendance, and we surpassed 2016 numbers. I feel like that we accomplished this by quickly finding alternative meeting space for our programs following the hurricane, and we continue to provide high-quality programs during the recovery period as well. So our total program attendance in 2017 was 24,479 people as compared to 24,351 in 2016. Victoria Public Library's staff and services are guided by our strategic plan, which has 4 areas of focus, including helping our youngest users develop skills to prepare them for school, encouraging users of all ages to continue learning throughout their lives, providing access to a variety of materials, and encouraging members of our community to connect with others and work collaboratively to create new ideas. We continue to work with a wide variety of partners in our community. Includes Children's Discovery Museum, Head Start, VISD, the Vine School, UHV and Victoria College, Gulf Bend Center, United Way. That's just to name a few. Now moving on to our budget. This is a broad overview of our 2018-19 budget as compared to this current year. Our proposed personnel costs have decreased by $26,661. Our maintenance and operation and capital lines have both increased by $17,246 and $218,580 respectively. One-time expenses, which I'm going to break out in detail later in this presentation, increased by $204,000, and recurring expenses increased by $4,400. Our personnel budget for 2018-19 includes the pay program and decreases in workman's comp and other payroll adjustments. The $27,000 cost savings is due to retirements, reclassifications, salary decreases when we are hiring new staff to replace those retirements, changes in the health plan, and tax adjustments. So between the pay program and decreases in payroll adjustments, there is an overall increase in recurring payroll of $6,903. This slide shows major increases and decreases in our recurring costs. There was a decrease in the budget for physical subscriptions, but an increase in budget line for electronic materials as we continue to find the balance between physical subscriptions to items such as newspapers and magazines, and then that access to electronically to similar items. There's also a decrease in the lights and power line, small increases in office equipment, purchasing fees, and a larger increase in our tech support costs at $15,583. Major decreases in capital expenses this upcoming year include both computer hardware and computer software. Our one-time capital expenses for 2018-19 include carpet replacement for our main floor for $175,000. This is a high-need item, as our carpet is 11 years old, and with an average foot traffic count of over 230,000 people, it wears quickly. We are also requesting the installation of vinyl plank flooring in our main workroom, which is the original flooring with the building, 1975, replacement of 2 HVAC units, replacement of our main copier, replacement of a disc cleaning machine, which allows us to maintain and keep circulating our music and DVD collections, replacement of 2 servers, and additional security cameras for our building. So this is a total one-time request of $238,300.
Is, Dana, the carpet, all of it, even where the shelving is?
Yes.
You have to move all that?
Yes, that's correct. That was what we did 11 years ago as well.
Yeah. How many square footage is that?
It is probably, the full building is 33,000 square feet. So you're going to take off that office space, 28 to 30,000 possibly.
And the cost to move the shelving is included in this $175,000.
That's right.
So that's.
I'm assuming carpet is worth it because of the quiet. I mean,
Yes,
you
that's
just can't
correct.
do a ceramic tile.
In that building especially with the
Okay.
high vaulted ceiling.
Yeah.
And yeah. All right, future budget concerns. The library's future projects include continued exploration of ways to make our library space more flexible and spacious. That has been on my radar for quite some time, and I've talked with you in the past about that. 2 possible projects include extension of the square footage of our building by opening our patio on the west side and make it usable seating space, which could be open air or enclosed. The enlargement of our story time room is something else we've been looking at and thinking about this last year. We could extend the glass walls to provide more space for families and children at our weekly programs. and a continued review of our library materials budget, both in physical and electronic format, to make sure we are meeting community needs. And that concludes my presentation. Are there any further questions I can answer for you?
Go ahead.
You know, since the county owns the library building, that has always been their contribution towards library services to all residents of the county. But we've always just had this understanding we're responsible for capital expenditures. That's a correct statement?
That's correct.
Okay,
Triple net lease,
yeah,
pretty much.
okay. I just wanted to make sure my thinking was correct
Sure.
and everybody understood that. I don't know that that's generally known in the community much.
I know.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank
Thank
you.
you, Dana. So Colby's going to talk about parks, community center, which also includes the golf course.
So the plan is parks and then fire, and y'all
You
want to,
can
we can do
We
that
can do fire tonight.
tonight, and then we'll come back tomorrow and wrap
Yeah,
up and
sure.
maybe rehash a few things. Okay.
Absolutely.
Mayor, council members, thank you for the opportunity to speak for you today. I'm going to go over Parks and Rec, including Community Center and the golf course. Rolando Hernandez, our golf pro, is here to, he'll go through the golf side of the budget for you. So anytime you have any questions, feel free to stop me. Well, why is that not going? There we go.
Thought Gary was fixing to get up and stop you already.
You gonna stop me, Gilbert? Okay.
No.
Just a real quick, when we had the golf course came underneath Parks and Rec, that changed my organizational structure just a little bit there, and so I wanted to present that out to you. The parks budget, I'm gonna go over some of the differences. The next slide will get into detail of each one of those differences, and so personnel, you're looking at an increase of 75,000. Maintenance and operation, 99,000. The capital is a large chunk there at 599. For our total budget, you have an increase of 774. The one-time expenditures on there is an increase of 599 for a total reoccurring increase of 174. And so I went real quick there because this next slide will go through those details for you. Come on. Okay, so like I said, the increase in it's 174. Personnel is 118 of that. We are reducing our staffing by 2 full-time employees, and Mr. Mayor, you talked about that earlier. What we've gone to, we were preparing this year. We were having some trouble getting staff at the rate that we were paying, and so I was preparing for the growing season, and I didn't want to get behind with staffing, and so we went out and we contracted out 5 of our parks to be mowed. That's Greenbelt and some of the other smaller parks that we have. They are on contract right now. You will, if approved, we will come back with and that's under $25,000 right now. If approved through this budget, we will come back and do a bid process for that and bring that back to you to be approved. But what it did for us, it increased our efficiencies. It allowed us to go from a 14-day mowing cycle down to a 10-day mowing cycle. And so we felt like that it's worked out tremendously for us so far. We haven't gotten the time that we're behind. Now, I say that with all the rain that we had this past week, but up till this point, we haven't gotten behind. Normally, we're not built for the highs. We're built for that average, and so we never got behind. And so it's been a pilot program that worked out great. And so I went ahead and proposed that we did it. Those were 2 positions that we had open anyway, so we froze those this year, and now we're coming back asking to go ahead and eliminate it, but to fund that contract going forward to mow those parks. Does that help you out in the question that you did? Okay. You also have some decreases in extra straight time, overtime, and workman's comp. The increases, of course, are for the raises and market adjustments. Our operations there, you see the parks mowing contract, and then we had some small increases in fuel line items. The capital replacement charge with the tractor and a new new F-350 truck, and then small adjustments to our line lights and powers and various other line items.
Hey, Colby, real quick, back to that contracting out those guys.
Yes.
Is that one company doing all 5?
Yes, sir. It sure is.
Are the requirements of the city a bit difficult for your average yard crew to bid on those things if we do that?
No, it was an average yard crew that did it. It was ground
There-
effects.
And I don't mean to,
I don't mean
average.
it-
These
okay.
guys you see around, I know a lot of them around town
Yeah.
that do mostly residential, but they are able to,
The insurance requirements will probably prevent some of those small one or two crews from
Okay.
bidding on our jobs.
okay, that's kind of what I was
Yeah,
asking,
we
I
check to
guess,
make sure
but-
that they can do the job. I mean, they're,
Yeah.
I guess that's what I'm getting, but you have several throughout the city that could perform this job. It will be something that I would imagine when we come back out for bid on it, you'll have 4 or 5 different companies
That's
trying
good.
to bid on it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on those adjustments? Okay, some of the projects that we're gonna, this thing is delayed on me. Some of the projects that we have, I got a couple corrections here. The Etheley Tracy Improvement Project, we have, the splash pad is coming along quickly. I had in this, when I turned this in, it was expecting us to be open July 4th. We've had some delays, of course, with weather and so that delayed us getting electricity and water sewer to it. We still believe we'll be in the mid part of July coming up, but we're not gonna hit that July 4th date.
And we are going to do a ribbon cutting for
Yes.
that when we get to that point to open it up. We've got a lot of foundations to thank for their generosity.
We sure do.
Want to make sure they're appropriately thanked.
This budget includes a request for a new playground being put on at Etheley Tracy, and that should be the 2018-19 budget instead of 18 there, of $300,000. We feel like that the park with the new expansion of Plaxico Benavides is going to increase the use of that park tremendously. And so, our normal playgrounds run, 125 to 150. We feel like this is going to become more of a regional type of park, a larger area, serve a lot more people. And so we wanted to go with a larger playground there. And then we have the bathrooms, which currently is not funded in that, but we were looking for opportunities to fund those the bathrooms to be put in there. There are bathrooms out there. It's just not going to be right by the splash pad until we get to that point. Evergreen Cemetery, we're replacing the fence along Red River and a portion of Vine Street. That fence needs to be replaced tremendously bad. It's curling up. And so we also are looking at the Community Center Park, resurfacing 2 of the tennis courts. The Lone Tree Splash Pad, we need to replace the UV system, that is the water sanitation system on it. And at Riverside Park, and this is one that I wanted to explain that in the CIP process, we talked about connecting the walking trail from about where my old office is, Rose Garden, up to Vine Street. I had put those numbers together several years ago, and they were wrong compared to the numbers that we're getting back for concrete right now. And so we're able to fund that in this year's budget if it's approved. We've had a couple of different projects like at the park. Hopkins Park, thank you, John. I'm sorry, I slipped my mind that the concrete process came back a lot cheaper, and so we're going to be able to get that part funded. We also are in year 4 of 7 of the control post replacement program. We'll continue that. Downtown, we're going to repowder coat the benches, trash cans, and the planters that are around the downtown area. And then as far as parks equipment, we're looking at 2 large area mowers, an infield groomer, and then replacing a mosquito fogger.
So I'm gonna remember that $75,000 number for that sidewalk. That's a pretty long sidewalk.
Thinking the exact same thing.
Donald, I'm looking at him, picking on him a little bit there, but I know that the Lone Tree is a lot of drainage work. I know that, but
Leary Lane.
excuse me, Leary Lane, yeah. And then, of course, this is, you can cut across wherever you want on that, almost. You're
Sure.
probably gonna take it close to the road, but you don't have to worry about other stuff.
Yeah, I don't have a ditch to fill in.
It's our property.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, the right of way
Yeah,
theoretically is
yeah.
too, but I know it's a much simpler job, but, how much was the one on, Salem, along the back of Castle Hills? That was it, straight off towards John Stockbar. That was expensive. I don't remember the number, but anyway, I'm glad to see that, very happy to see that.
Any other questions?
Did it have, I haven't been over there in a while, the Rose Garden, that fence that's down,
Yes, sir.
has there been any
It's up and back.
It's up.
It's up and
And
Like
it
I
fixed.
said, I
is-
hadn't been in there in a while.
It's black iron, and it is absolutely gorgeous. You can see the roses a lot better than from that
From the
white
white one?
fence.
Good.
Looks fantastic.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Community center budget stayed pretty flat overall. We had a decrease in personnel, a small increase in maintenance operations. Capital remained very flat. And so for a total budget of 607, and we increased that budget about $6,000. And I'll go into some of those. The stipend program was taken out, and then you have the adjustments to payroll with workman's comp, and then you have the 2019 pay program. Operations increased. We're going to a landscaping and mowing contract for that facility, so that the front area that is landscaped is on a monthly and biweekly maintenance program for that area. And then we decreased some of our lights and power line items.
It's really nice there and well-maintained. The police chief and I were there the other day at an event. Very nice.
Thank you. All right, and here's golf course.
Tell you later.
Evening, everybody. So a golf course. As you guys can see, there's a little bit of difference, and one of the main things to keep in mind while we go through some of these items is when we get to some of the expenses, it's going to be based on our 2017-18 budget was 9 months for the most part of expenditures. So that's going to be a lot of the differences that you're going to see in the 18-19 budget. So just something I'd like for you guys to keep in mind as we roll through some of these. So personnel being the first one, obviously with that 9 against 12 is going to be a big chunk of that part of it. Again, and that also, am I correct, includes a pay program for 2019 as well. So that would be your 91,000 on that portion of it. Maintenance and operation, this comes from a little bit of peel back in a few different categories. One, and probably one of the bigger chunks of it being the service contract or the consulting contract that we had with the Foresight Golf for the second half of last year. So that does take part of that. Other things are reducing some of the items that we use on day to day, whether it's chemical or sand or those kind of things that we can do with that we've been able to I guess pick apart a little bit on budget items and feel comfortable still moving forward as well. Capital items, the biggest chunk of this is going to come from the renovations and things that we did to the clubhouse previously in end of last year, end of last fiscal year. So that's going to be our proposed budget for this year. That $8,000 is going to go to help us kind of recreate the kitchen area and a food service that we're still looking to get into and trying to finish up the last bit of bidding and things for those to understand what we're doing moving forward. But that's where that little bit of capital money comes from. As far as the total budget, you can see it's still short of our previous 2017-18, which is great in the fact that we were missing 3 months of operation. So still looking pretty good on that part. Again, one-time expense goes back to those capital budget numbers, and our reoccurring budget moves a little bit from only $12,000. Looking at some of the expenses, again, some of these things that move that help save money on the other end. The reoccurring part will be, I guess, again, small items such as small tools, office supplies, those little things that we know will increase as we move forward with maintenance needed for mowers and things as they get into their second year of operation and use. All right, so differences here. Again, something to keep in mind is the 9 months of operations versus a 12-month of operation. So these differences will be seen as part of that as well. Obviously, with golf sales, we want rounds of golf to go up as a whole. That is what we're always looking for, whether that's in the form of increasing our annual pass holder memberships or day-to-day play of golf daily fee. The average community member that comes in plays golf, or same thing, anybody that's visiting us from out of town as well. Beer sales, we're hoping those always go up. They've done pretty good for the year. They're actually right around the number that we projected, and we'd expect that to show the same kind of growth or consistency going into next year as well. Food sales, this is one of the areas that you'll see a big difference in, and one of the things that we would like to continue to work on. Again, the capital money that we're looking to use this coming year, and hopefully before then, should we be able to fund it correctly, would be to get our current break room converted into a usable and up to code kitchen, to be able to provide some food service and definitely be able to increase that number. That's one of the ones that's lacking big time from what we were hoping to be. Non-alcoholic beverages, pretty steady. Should see about the same. I would actually think a little bit of an increase for next year. Again, these are very conservative of what we're doing. And I think always on the right track and putting us in a good spot, and again being conservative moving into next year. Merchandise sales, same thing. Not much of a change there. A few things that we can add to the golf shop, and some of the cost of goods that we can reduce to keep those things pretty even. Capital replacement, this number will always go along with the dollar per player that we pull from each one of our guests that are visiting, be it in-town community members or people that are visiting from out of town as well. So that little bit of a change that you see there is actually increase the number of rounds that we're looking for moving to next year. So that's where that small difference comes from. Transfers, this would be, I'm assuming, a Gilbert question from money that he moved from the general fund to be able to support us as we got going this year. So that's where that money's missing from. And total revenues, the proposed budget would be just over $1 million for this year. And again, the largest change is coming from that transfer and also from the food sales category, which we hope to remedy moving into next year. Any questions on that one?
So the capital replacement surcharge, that'll be added too. That's just what you're gonna add next year, hopefully.
Yes, well,
25.
that'll be a year number. The difference between year to year, but this year we're looking at adding $22,000 into our capital fund.
So the ending balance and Gilbert probably
Yeah.
is those two together, hopefully, unless you use it.
hopefully.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Alrighty, revenue versus expenditures here. So total revenue, again, something to keep in mind, the 9 months versus the 12 months. So variance there, total revenues, obviously we'd want to be much higher, and with a good variance based on operating time, the 9 versus 12 months. Cost of goods, same thing. It's going to go up with being open for more months, more items to buy, cost of goods going into it. Gross profit, obviously, same thing. We want that to be going up along with more days of operation. Clubhouse operations, again, this is, I guess, a couple of things. Again, the increase in the 2019 payment program, same thing with golf operations. Some of it comes from personnel expenses, and the other portions will come from your big expenses as far as golf courses, chemicals, and sand supplies, small office tools, maintenance for machinery, some of those bigger items that fall into that category. As far as clubhouse operations, it's going to be your cost of goods for merchandise and drinks, and then small tools and supplies, some of the things we'll need for golf carts to keep up with maintenance on those things as well. Total expense difference, again, the big part of this is operating for 9 months versus the 12, and the net income, still looking to make a little bit of money for next year and keep ourselves right side up. That along playing into the capital money that we'll be looking to gain as well. And then you can see the ending working capital for the end of next year would be at 436, which would be again a small increase for what we'd be looking at the end of this year, this fiscal year. Questions there? Still good? All right, so sales. So at the moment, our annual pass program is our membership program, and this is showing projected rounds for the remainder of this year, along with proposed rounds for next year. Not too much change on the first three items. Those are our current annual pass holders, and this is kind of our projected rounds based on what we're seeing right now. Those won't move much, just because we're halfway through the year. We are in kind of the peak of playing season, even though it is hot. A lot of these guys that have their memberships will continue to play on a day-to-day basis, be it early in the morning, late in the afternoon. Won't see too much change in there. The biggest increase and where we're always looking to increase would be the daily fee numbers. So moving from what we're expecting 12,000 rounds this year to the 16,000 proposed daily fee rounds, and that's just kind of the additional revenue that we're able to generate on a day-to-day basis. and that's just seeing more rounds. As the golf course gets better, conditions improve, you'll see people play more often from in the community, or people visiting, traveling from, you know, close areas within 30, 45 minutes. But you'll also start to gain some of these guys that'll travel from Corpus or even from outside of Houston, outside of San Antonio. So again, that'll be our big increase, and something we'll always be tracking to make sure we're heading in the right direction for that point of it. Golf tournament rounds, again, the projected number of rounds right now aren't moving from what our proposed rounds are for next year. This is a very conservative number. Again, as course conditions improve, and just the overall feeling of the golf course gets better, this is something that we can definitely gain on as we move forward. But again, conservative number here, something we're comfortable with being able to hit for next year as we sit. And then total golf sales, looking at a proposed budget of just over $800,000. And then obviously with the increase in rounds. Questions, others? Good. Others for myself or Colby?
All I hear is good things, so.
Good.
I don't know about the rest of the council.
That's the idea.
Good.
Thank you.
I would like to ask Kobe, y'all looked at the fees we charge for community center and your portion of that presentation?
This budget does not include any fees that are increased for just regular rentals. Now, that is something that staff is looking at. We're comparing other complexes within the state that are similar, but we are not including those in this budget.
Oh, no, okay. But you are looking to make sure we're still in line?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
we bring those back late August to coincide with the adoption with the October 1. So, I'm not sure, I know the departments are all re-looking at all their fees to see if they want to propose any increase.
Well, it was another one of those that laid dormant for a long time.
Yes,
and
sir.
Then we had to play a bad game of catch-up.
Yes or no, sir. They all review, we do a review every year during the summer months. So I
Very
think they're all due to me sometime mid-July.
Very good.
So everybody's working on them. Thank you. Thank you, guys. So Tanner, your last budget for the City of Victoria presentation.
Uh-oh, what'd I do?
Now, don't smile too much.
Well, good evening.
I got one question. What's the time limit you need to beat to go out on top?
Probably about 14, 15 minutes.
Okay. We'll work
I
on that
pull
up
it
here
off.
for you.
Yeah, for everybody, they take, not really
But
bets.
this time right here can't count against
Yeah.
me.
To see
Filler time's
between
killing me.
Tanner and the police chief who does the shortest presentation. It's kind of an internal joke, but
He's
they,
pretty short tonight, so he's gonna be hard to beat.
He must be pretty important. He brings his own hecklers.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight and present our budget for 2019. I do want to start with a little reminder that my budget doesn't include a lot of metrics from our performance and things that we do, because I typically try to bring that back in the first quarter of the year through an annual report. So mine's kind of the meat and potatoes of our organization and what we have. And so with that, I'll kind of get started. Just as a reminder, we are funded at the 130 positions in our department, and that's kind of a breakdown from the fire chief's office to the training division, fire marshal's office, and operations. We did bring one position forward to the fire marshal's office this year. Their increase of service has certainly been quite a bit, and so, but I'm sure the chief will push that forward next year.
yeah, what he's trying to say is it was not recommended to
Yeah, it
fund.
wasn't funded
I mean,
this year, but
You have
that-
so much money to fund positions with.
Just kind of a 5-year breakdown of our stats, and this is certainly a crude look at what that is. That certainly doesn't dive into the detail, but as a reminder, last year we had almost an 11% increase in calls for service, which was, a lot of that was attributed to the hurricane. And I did look today to see where we're at tracking for the year, and we're identical within about 4 calls on today for June 25th from 2017 to 2018. So if that holds true, we should actually be a little bit down if we don't have another hurricane. because our numbers should trend downward just a little bit. Just kind of a big slice overview of our budget. We're proposed at $13.5 million, with 10.8 of that being our personnel cost, and then our maintenance and operations, you can see at 2.3, and then about 400,000. This represents about a 4% increase from what it was last year. I do want to point to the red numbers on the far right. As I was watching the police chief's presentation, I didn't see any red numbers, but I want to make sure y'all understand the fire department's always doing their part to try to reduce those costs.
Always is.
So 2017, 2018 comparison, we're looking at a $188,000 increase in our employee payroll, and that does include all of the pay program that Ms. Martha Johnny discussed earlier. Same way with our benefits. You know, our fleet from year to year and our capital from year to year will fluctuate based off apparatus purchases or ambulance purchases or even big key purchases that have to do with like the radio system or cardiac monitors. And so we do have a little bit of an increase, and I'll discuss that on a different slide, but basically $234,000 in operating cost more, with, you know, about 188,000 of that coming right out of the employee increase. So breaking that down just a little bit from our supplies, you know, our fuel cost is projected to be a little bit higher just because of the cost of fuel. Some of our medical supplies, we do continue to see an increase in our medical supplies and our calls for service on EMS. In our maintenance, just small incremental increases across the board there as you look at different things. Something we are going to do, you see in our professional services at almost $10,000 is we're actually proposing to add another medical director, kind of like a junior medical director. That was pointed out to us as a best practice. If Dr. McNeil were to step aside or to move on, we basically have 24 hours to replace him. And so that's not a whole long time. So we're actually reaching out to another doctor to bring him in as a kind of let Dr. Mentor him, Dr. McNeil. So we see that increase there on that side. And then our IT, a little bit of increase in internal charges and purchasing. Our fleet, about $190,000 increase from the year before. Mainly what we're seeing there is we're proposed a new ambulance at $250,000, which also includes the power load system that's we're starting to try to equip our new ambulances with to save on back injuries. And we also have a fire truck purchase in here for $600,000, and that's actually not coming out of the general fund. That's going to be paid for on the reimbursement that we're getting from the federal government. We bought one last year the same way, and so that should be a wash. Is everybody familiar with what I was talking about there? We started getting that reimbursement 2 years ago on uncollectible debt on some of our indigent care and Medicaid patients, and so we've been able to turn that back into updating our fleet, and so we have that proposed again this coming year. And then our capital, as it was discussed earlier with Gilbert, the additional $260,000 that will pay our first payment on the new radio system. Kind of bounce down through some of the items that we use. Hazmat and technical rescue, those are areas that we continue to try to support and grow our skill set by sending these folks to more advanced training. Our IT needs, our technology. We've got some tough pads for the fire apparatus and ambulances. We're replacing all the cradle points, which makes it a Wi-Fi spot from the trucks. Fire marshal equipment, actually they've requested an interview room, which has become a little bit of a challenge for them at times to be able to do interviews of folks that have maybe are being charged with arson without having to go down to the police department. So this will give them that technology to be able to do that. And on the fire equipment, I want to point out something, and that's the Garrett Tractor and the PPE dryers. And what's significant about those is with your support over the last really about 3 or 4 years now, this will complete us having Garrett tractors and Garrett dryers at every station. That's significant because as we look out at what continues to ail firefighters, it's cancer. And it's a lot of the materials that they get on their skin and they get on their bunker gear. So this enables us to be able to go back and wash that stuff instantly. So we do a gross decon on scene, but now we'll be able to, at every fire station, be able to properly clean their gear and dry their gear so it can be put back into service very quickly. So that's a tribute to you guys supporting us as we've worked really hard to try to get to that point. So, and I talked a little bit about the engine and then also the new ambulance. Some of the EMS stuff that we continue to try to enhance, decontamination equipment. We bought a couple of these last year. They work really good. We can put them in the back of an ambulance for fire truck or in a station, and it will sterilize everything in there. So as they come into contact with different folks that are sick and whatnot, just trying to keep everything clean so that our folks stay healthy. Some vacuum spine boards. In the EMS world, the hard backboards are kind of going away and moving more towards this type of concept. So this will get some for every station. And then SCBA cleaning mask, another way to get rid of the germs and stuff. SCBA fill station, this will also complete our having the ability to refill SCBA bottles from every fire station. So that again is quite an accomplishment for a department our size is to be able to have that at every fire facility. And then I talked about the PPE dryer. Scott Pack Trackers, if you're not sure what that is, that allows our rapid intervention teams to keep track of firefighters as they go into a burning building with a device. So if something happens to them, they know how to get to them. They can go directly to them instead of having to go in and do a search for them. So that's to upgrade a couple that needed to be replaced. Again, third-party organization validations is still something that's very important to organization. We just recently went through the best practices review. I guess that's been a couple weeks now, 3 weeks ago, and came out flying colors. They will be voting on that in, I think, next week. But our review team was very complimentary of us. So that'll be a great accomplishment for our departments to have that best practices accreditation. And then, recently we were awarded the Gold Plus in the Mission Lifeline, which is 2 years in a row. It's the highest recognition we can get. So that, again, a great tribute to what the folks are doing out there in the field. And then just something that will be considered going forward, the new chief tells me, is a commission on accreditation of ambulance services. And then, again, we have pushed all of our command staff through the certified executive fire officer, trying to raise the level of expectation of our employees as we move forward. So, and as always, we're continuously looking for opportunities to improve and enhance, the performance of our employees and the service that we provide out in our community. And lastly, I would like to say, it's been a privilege and a pleasure to stand before you the last 7 years. I told myself I wouldn't do that. And represent the men and women of the Victoria Fire Department and to have your support. I mean, you guys have been fantastic to work for. Ms. Garrett is just like they mentioned earlier, city manager of the year. That's, it's a great team. So thank you.
And before you walk away, since I thought Tanner was going to speak tomorrow night, I'll just go ahead and, I know and council may, but Tanner, you came in at a time when we needed a change in the department. We needed a new foundation built in that department. And you've all witnessed that over the last 7 years. It's probably hear me say this again on Wednesday, but, you know, we talk about it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. But Tanner has been on the sprint for the last 7 years. So with all that's been accomplished, he's had, because of his leadership and his understanding to have that succession, you know, and work with developing the employees in that department, we're able to promote from within. So, you know, which is a tribute to his leadership style. And I know the department heads are jockeying to see who's going to be the person that's going to now pick between you and the police chief and the parks director. So they're kind of trying to figure out who's going to be there, because those three guys had a tremendous relationship. And, you know, that was very important to me when we hired, Tanner came first and we hired the police chief, but it was critical, I thought, to this organization for both of those chiefs to have a good working relationship, and they have, and it's been evident, maybe not to the public, but it has to me. So can't say enough about what Tanner's done for the department. His footprints have been implanted in the department, and his DNA is there for a long time to come, and greatly appreciated. So.
Yeah.
Thank you for those
That's
kind
said.
words.
Well said.
Thank you, as well said. So we're going to wait till tomorrow for the environmental and public works. Agreed? Everybody's good with that? I know it's been a long evening. It's been 2 hours and 15 minutes. The results of best PowerPoint we'll let you know tomorrow. See, we had our own contest going.
Okay.
No, excellent presentations, and we'll pick up tomorrow, okay? We're adjourned.
Thank you. Thank you.
Change my depends.